Thanksgiving morning begins in silence, and not the peaceful kind. It's the kind of silence that feels rehearsed, practiced, even. The kind you train yourself to accept so it doesn't consume you. I sit at the edge of the bed in my Chicago high-rise, 32 floors above a city too loud to match my mood. The light outside is muted, grayish gold, filtering through the half-closed blinds as if it, too, is hesitant to intrude. There's a draft in the room, or maybe that's just me. This apartment is technically mine, technically home, but I stopped calling it that months ago. Now, it's just coordinates. A place where my mail arrives and where the shadows don't ask questions. My name is Malcolm Ray. I'm 38 years old. I make $180,000 a year as a senior analyst at a biotech firm that specializes in data modeling for pharmaceutical efficacy. It's a decent living, an impressive job title, and my LinkedIn page is spotless. My life, on paper, is everything an ambitious man could want. In reality, it's a drawer full of unused vacation time and a fridge that holds exactly 1 bottle of wine, 2 yogurts, and nothing resembling Thanksgiving dinner. My phone buzzes once. A group text. Maya's family. Her mother is sending photos of the Palm Beach suite set up for the trip. Crystal vases. Gold linen napkins. All sponsored by Douglas Vance, my father-in-law, billionaire, and professional puppeteer. I glance at the suitcase lying open on the bench by the window. Just 3 shirts, 2 pairs of trousers, 1 pair of loafers, and a book I probably won't read. I always pack light. I've learned that over-preparing for a place you don't belong in only makes the exile feel heavier. Maya, on the other hand, probably started packing last week. Coordinated looks, planned photo ops, and candid videos for her followers. That's who she is: loud, curated, chaotic in a way that gets brand deals and garners pity likes. She thrives in the spotlight. Me? I thrive in the background, in the quiet, where things make sense and people don't perform for cameras. I look at the wall above my dresser. The wedding photo is still hanging there, not because I'm sentimental, but because I've gotten used to not noticing it. Except today, I do. Today, I notice how Maya's eyes aren't even looking at me in the frame. She's angled toward the lens, chin slightly lifted, a practiced gleam in her gaze that screams, "Look at me." And me? I'm smiling at her like a fool, oblivious, hands still wrapped around vows that only I seem to take seriously. That photo is a hint I ignored, one of many. The pose, the distance in her stance, the half-hearted grip on my hand. I thought it was wedding jitters. I thought it was nothing. But it was a preface, a warning. And I, in my need to believe, had turned the page anyway. My phone buzzes again. This time it's Maya herself. A selfie. She's already in Florida, standing in front of a mirror in a white bikini, captioned, "Breakers, here we come." No mention of me. No we, really. Just her. Just a solo act in a play I've been funding from the wings. I drag the zipper on my suitcase closed, the sound sharp in the stillness. My tie is still hanging on the hook by the door. I grab it, even though I doubt I'll need it. Appearances must be kept, at least for now. It's the only armor I've ever worn to those family events. Not truth. Not affection. Just pressed shirts and polite nods. As I pull on my coat, I catch my reflection in the bathroom mirror. The overhead light makes the gray in my beard look more pronounced today. My eyes look tired, sure, but focused. There's something under the surface now, something I haven't felt in a long time. Not anger. Not sadness. A kind of readiness. Like the quiet before an earthquake. Like the exact second when the glass knows it's about to shatter. I lean closer to the mirror, not to fix my hair, but to speak the words I've rehearsed a dozen times in my head but never out loud. No more pretending. My voice is steady, low. It sounds like someone else's. Stronger. More certain. I grab the car service receipt from the counter, double-check the flight details, and sling the bag over my shoulder. One last glance at the apartment. It looks cleaner when I'm about to leave it. Always does. Like it's finally at peace when I'm gone. The hallway outside echoes with the familiar hum of early morning stillness. I press the elevator button, the stainless steel doors open, and I step inside. As I descend floor by floor, I don't think about Maya's latest post or how Douglas will smirk when I arrive or how her sisters will pretend they didn't know I wasn't included in the group itinerary. I don't think about how Maya has been preparing for this trip like it's a campaign rollout and not a family vacation. No. I think about the mirror in room 1703, about how sometimes the only way to see clearly is to finally look straight at yourself. And this time, I'm not looking away. The breakers in Palm Beach looked exactly the same as the last 6 times I'd been dragged here, flawless, excessive, and buzzing with the kind of opulence that made people forget humility existed. The kind of place where money wasn't just spent, it was announced with every inch of gold trim, marble flooring, and crystal sparkle. I stepped through the revolving door, suitcase in hand, the Florida heat still clinging to my collar despite the lobby's chilled air. A pianist played something light and forgettable near the bar, and a group of guests, already sun-kissed at 11 a.m., sipped champagne like it was orange juice. I approached the concierge desk calmly, already expecting the awkward welcome. Maya never mentioned my name when she didn't have to, not in public, and especially not when it meant sacrificing the spotlight. But even knowing that, I wasn't ready for the look on the man's face. "Good morning. Reservation for Malcolm Ray," I said, placing my ID gently on the counter like I'd done countless times before. The concierge, mid-50s, polite, practiced, scanned the computer. His brows knit together like he was trying to solve a puzzle he'd seen before but couldn't quite place. "I'm sorry, sir. I don't have a reservation under that name." His voice was careful, clipped with forced patience. I exhaled slowly through my nose. "Could you check under the Vance family?" "Maya Vance Ray." His fingers tapped the keyboard again, slower this time, as if the problem might resolve itself if he approached it with reverence. "I do have reservations under Vance. A suite and 2 adjoining rooms. And I assume I'm not listed on any of them." "No, sir. The reservation lists 3 guests, Ms. Maya Vance Ray, Mr. Marcus Langdon, and Mr. Julian Kane." I blinked once. There was no explosion in me, no sudden flare of emotion. Just a dull, spreading cold, like a faucet inside had been turned all the way off. The sharp click of heels cut through the air like a match striking pavement. I didn't have to turn to know it was her. Maya's entrances were never accidental. "Oh, Malcolm, you came." Her voice spilled over my shoulder, all syrup and performance. I turned to see her gliding toward me in a cream designer wrap and heels that cost more than my first car. She wore sunglasses indoors, of course. One hand held a lavender cocktail. The other reached out like we were old friends. Behind her came the entourage, 2 men, both exes of different kinds. Marcus, her high school fling turned serial investor turned semi-famous bankrupt podcast host. And Julian, model, influencer, the kind of man who lived in filtered light and rented Teslas. The fact that they were both here, and I was not, made the entire performance complete. "I only reserved rooms for my real love," Maya said, just loud enough for the front desk and a few nosy guests to hear. "Marcus, Julian, and me." She smiled wide, wicked. A practiced move, perfected in bathroom mirrors and brand partnership shoots. The concierge awkwardly shifted his eyes to me. The pianist missed a note behind us. A child dropped something fragile across the lobby. But none of that pierced through the thick wall of silence rising in my chest. I stared at Maya, not at her dress or her smirk or the way she casually leaned against the counter like she hadn't just humiliated me in front of strangers, but at her eyes. Cold, gleeful, calculated. I thought about everything I had endured up to this point. The years of being her stability while she spun chaos. The ignored rumors. The way her family would toast to our marriage while privately reminding me of my replaceability. The condescending smiles from Douglas. The side eyes from her sisters. The jokes at dinners that I never responded to. I thought about it all in one breath. And I said nothing. No defense. No confrontation. No scene. Instead, I turned. Slowly. I reached down, picked up my suitcase, and with a calm so sharp it could cut, I walked out. Not rushed. Not hunched. Not ashamed. I moved past the marble columns, past the valet, past the couple who looked at me with curious sympathy. The Florida sun hit me hard as I stepped back into the warmth. It was brighter now, unapologetic. Just like her. But I didn't look back. Dignity isn't loud. That's the thing people forget. It doesn't clap back. It doesn't need an audience. Dignity is in the silence, in the decision not to give someone the show they're craving. And I wasn't giving her the satisfaction. Not anymore. I pulled out my phone. No missed calls. Not yet. I hailed the nearest taxi. The driver looked at me, then at the suitcase, and asked, "Airport?" I nodded, sliding into the back seat. "No." I looked out the window for a second. "Not yet. Just drive." As the car pulled away, I saw her one last time in the rearview mirror. Standing there, smug, with her cocktail held high and her boys flanking her like trophies. Let her have her moment. The real show hadn't even started yet. The taxi hummed along the Florida coast, passing pastel beach houses and swaying palms, but I barely saw any of it. The driver had music on low, some gentle, faceless jazz, but the real noise was in my chest. It wasn't rage. No, I didn't feel that. I felt something far more dangerous. I felt clarity. I leaned back against the cracked leather seat and stared out at the ocean. The morning sun skipped across the water like it was trying to distract me with beauty, like the state always did, overselling the paradise while hiding the rot underneath. I rested my head against the cool glass of the window, breathing slower now. It was done. Whatever illusions I'd been clinging to. About Maya, about our marriage, about how much I mattered to her, they were gone. Cleanly. Publicly. No ambiguity. She'd drawn the line in marble and gold. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel the need to chase her over it. My phone buzzed against my thigh. I didn't look. I didn't need to. It would be starting now. The follow-ups, the excuses, the spin. Maya always followed public scenes with private manipulation. She tried to paint it as a joke gone too far. Maybe blame the hotel for the mix-up. Maybe even toss Julian or Marcus under the bus if she felt the damage was big enough. That was the thing about Maya. She never believed consequences were meant for her. But I wasn't playing this time. I pulled out my phone and opened the airline app. One-way ticket. Chicago. Departure, this afternoon. I booked it in under a minute. No hesitation. No, are you sure? This wasn't a retreat. It was a release. Then, I opened my contacts and scrolled to the name that had sat like a loaded weapon in my phone for months. Miriam Poe. My divorce attorney. We'd had 3 quiet conversations in the past year. Nothing official. Just contingency planning. She'd always spoken in measured tones, never pushing, never judging. The last thing she said to me had been simple. You'll know when it's time. I tapped her name and brought the phone to my ear. She answered on the second ring. Malcolm. It's time, I said. There was a pause. She understood. She always did. I'll start the paperwork today. Do you want it filed before the weekend? Yes. All right. I'll email you a few final disclosures, but you're good to go. Stay steady, Malcolm. Thanks, Miriam. That was it. That was the moment it all shifted. A simple phone call, a decision spoken into existence. But beneath the quiet tone of my voice, there was a quake building. Years of swallowing pride, of enduring digs from Maya's family, of being the man who paid and stayed and kept the wheels turning while the circus played around him. That man had left the hotel lobby. This one, he was free. The driver glanced at me in the mirror. Airport now. Yeah, I said, sitting up straighter. O'Hare. Terminal 1. You're heading out early, huh? Something like that. He nodded like he knew, like he'd seen that look before. Maybe he had. Florida was full of broken honeymoons and quiet exits. But this wasn't about escape. This was about control. As we neared the airport, my phone buzzed again. 12 missed calls now. Most from Maya. One from Douglas. I laughed dryly. Of course. The puppet master had likely heard the show didn't go as planned. The public embarrassment of his son-in-law walking out unannounced wouldn't sit well, even for a man who spent his life shielding scandals with non-disclosures and wire transfers. I turned off my phone. Just held the button down and watched the screen go black, like snuffing out the last ember of a fire that had burned too long. By the time I stepped into the airport terminal, I felt weightless. Not happy. Not yet. But lighter. Like I'd finally stopped dragging an anchor behind me. Security was quick. No fuss. Just a routine scan and a quiet nod from a TSA agent who didn't know who I was and didn't care. I like that. I like being just a man with a suitcase. Not Malcolm Ray, the guy married to a billionaire's daughter. Not the +1 in curated photo ops. Not the walking, talking brand balance. At my gate, I sat by the window and watched planes take off into a cloudless sky. One after the other, rising on schedule, without apology. I envied their simplicity. They knew where they were going. No emotion. Just trajectory. I thought back to the early days with Maya, before the fame, before the followers, before every vacation came with a hashtag. There was a time when we used to laugh at influencers. When we used to cook badly together and eat on the floor because our dining table hadn't arrived yet. There was a time I thought we were building something. But somewhere along the way, I became a prop. Something sleek she could lean on, then put away when the shot was over. Well, not anymore. I boarded the plane when my group was called, found my window seat, and let the flight attendant place a small water bottle on the tray table. Outside, the jet engine rumbled to life. I closed my eyes and took a breath. No confrontation. No final fight. No dramatic goodbye. Just silence. And freedom. Back in Chicago, the wind felt like truth. Sharp. Icy. Unapologetic. I stepped out of the cab and into the lobby of my building, the cold slipping past the collar of my coat like it belonged there. The doorman gave me a polite nod, the kind that asked no questions but knew everything. I didn't speak. Just kept walking, my suitcase in tow, past the marble floor that suddenly felt more solid beneath me. It was done. Not just the trip, not just the farce Maya had turned into performance art, but the whole illusion. I was no longer pretending to be a part of something I was never truly welcome in. Once inside my apartment, I didn't bother unpacking. I went straight to my desk, unlocked the drawer, and pulled out the envelope I'd stored months ago. My name, written in Douglas Vance's shaky, aging script, looked almost comical now. Fragile. But the contents weren't. Inside were two documents. One, a notarized letter co-signed by Arthur Lavin, Douglas's longtime private attorney. The other, an amended clause to the Vance Estate Trust. Months ago, Douglas and I sat in his study, one of the only times he'd asked for a private meeting without Maya or her mother around. He'd been drinking whiskey at 10 in the morning, swirling the glass like he was watching time disappear. "You know they think I'm senile," he said, his voice flat, but not bitter. I didn't respond. He didn't expect me to. "I've made mistakes," he admitted. "Spoiled them. Let Cassandra turn Maya into a brand instead of a person. But I always noticed you, Malcolm. You show up. You don't lie to my face. That's rare." I'd thought it was a compliment then. Just an old man being wistful. But the truth came later. "I want you to help Arthur with something. If I ever start to lose my grip, legally, mentally, I need someone competent to act as interim executor. Not Cassandra. Not the girls. And God help us, not Maya." I had laughed, quietly, like it was absurd. But Douglas hadn't. "I'm serious. You're the only one in this mess I'd trust with the keys if the house caught fire." And now, the house was blazing. The stunt Maya pulled in Palm Beach had already made its rounds online. TikTok clips, gossip sites, a blog post titled "Billionaire's Daughter Shames Husband at the Breakers." Was it a setup? Trended overnight. One video, captured from a guest phone, caught her smug announcement, "I only reserved rooms for my real love," echoing through the opulent lobby. Arthur had wasted no time. The morning after I landed, he'd emailed me, "We need to talk. It's time." We met at a quiet restaurant downtown. No fanfare. Just two men in coats, sitting at a corner table with more history between them than conversation. "Douglas had a lucid moment this week," Arthur said over black coffee. "But the medical reports aren't optimistic. The family doesn't know how bad it's gotten. They will soon." I didn't interrupt. I knew what he was building toward. "Effective immediately," he continued, sliding a folder across the table. "You're acting executor. The clause has been triggered. Maya's behavior went viral, Douglas's cognition is slipping, and we've already had preliminary conversations with the board." I opened the folder and scanned the pages. The signature was there. Douglas's, in faint but legal ink. Witnessed. Dated. Certified. For the next 6 months, or until the court deems Douglas unfit long-term, I controlled the Vance estate. Not just Maya's trust fund, but the family's holdings, their charitable foundation, their liquid assets, and even discretionary spending accounts. "You don't have to take it," Arthur said quietly. "You can walk away, and this goes to Cassandra." I closed the folder and looked him in the eye. "She helped humiliate me," I said evenly. She laughed while Maya dragged me across that lobby like I was a punchline. No one stopped her. No one even flinched. He nodded, slowly. "Then it's yours. Just be ready." "For what?" I didn't ask. I already knew. Back in my apartment, I placed the documents into a locked drawer and poured myself a glass of scotch. Maya had no idea what was coming. Neither did Douglas's board. But they learned soon enough. The funny thing about power? Real power? It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't wear designer heels or broadcast declarations in lobbies. It waits. Patient. Silent. Precise. Maya had broadcast her betrayal. And now, I would answer it, not with volume, but with control. Starting with her accounts. I picked up my phone and drafted an email to Arthur. Subject, discretionary account freeze. Body, please initiate a hold on Maya's personal and discretionary accounts. Pending full review. Authority, Malcolm Ray, interim executor. Sent. Then I poured another drink and sat down by the window, watching the city turn to ice outside. The next chapter had begun, and I was holding the pen. The first message came before dawn. I had barely finished my second cup of coffee, the city still wrapped in frost and streetlight reflections. My apartment was quiet, the kind of quiet that used to feel empty. Now, it felt earned. My phone buzzed once, then again. Then, a rapid sequence of vibrations that turned the whole kitchen counter into a trembling drum. I glanced down. Maya. 3 missed calls. 1 voicemail. Then a text. Malcolm, please. It was just a joke. I was trying to be funny. Call me. I stared at the message for a long moment, letting the words sit there on the screen like they were waiting to become real. A joke. Publicly humiliating me in front of her exes, her family, strangers at the breakers. That was a joke? No. That was Maya doing what Maya did best, performing cruelty, then framing it as charm. I didn't reply. An hour later, another call came in, Julian Kane this time. Of course. I didn't answer, but he left a voicemail. His voice was too rehearsed, like someone auditioning for sympathy. Hey, Malcolm. Man, I don't know what that was about. She told me you were on the guest list. I thought you were in the suite next door, honestly. If I'd known. He cut off mid-sentence. Probably realized how stupid it sounded. If I'd known. As if it was somehow better that I'd been humiliated by accident instead of by design. Then came Marcus. I had no idea you weren't invited. I swear, man. She said you were staying somewhere else because you don't like beach resorts. I didn't want to be there. She pulled me in at the last second. Coward. A man who couldn't even own his complicity. I remembered how he grinned when Maya made her real love joke. He laughed. They all did. By noon, the messages were constant. Instagram DMs, missed calls. A string of desperate attempts to reframe what had happened. And then, like a final note in a discordant symphony, Cassandra. Maya's mother. Voice like velvet dipped in arsenic. I almost didn't press play on her voicemail, but I did. And of course, she delivered exactly what I expected. Malcolm, dear. We've made a mistake. I think everyone got caught up in the moment. You know how Maya is. Please don't do anything rash. Let's talk this out before we create a bigger mess. She still thought I needed to be managed. She still believed I was the quiet, compliant husband who could be guilt with carefully chosen words and clipped sympathy. I finished my coffee, set the mug down, and opened my laptop. No more whispers. No more behind-the-scenes begging. It was time for an official response. I emailed Arthur Lavin. Subject, notification of executive action. Body, Arthur, please draft and send a formal notice of interim control of the Vance estate. Distribute to all relevant family members and legal representatives. Confirm freeze of discretionary accounts per earlier request. Attachments, amendment documents, signed executor clause, timestamped media clips from the breakers incident. Send. By evening, the silence was deafening. That's how I knew the message had landed. I imagined it now, Maya standing at the bar, black card in hand, swiping for a round of overpriced cocktails and being told the charge had been declined. I could see her blinking in disbelief, laughing nervously, thinking it was a glitch. Then trying again. And again. Then the call to her assistant. Then the call to her mother. Then the call to her father's private banker, only to be told the funds were inaccessible without my authorization. I leaned back in my chair, the hum of the heater filling the room. It wasn't joy I felt. It wasn't revenge either. It was balance. Finally. For years I had watched her live without boundaries, every mistake covered, every insult excused, every selfish act repackaged as empowerment. Now, the leash was real. At 8:47 p.m., Arthur confirmed everything. Subject, action complete. Body, notices sent. Accounts frozen. Control of the Vance discretionary funds is now solely under your sign-off. Expect escalation. We're ready. He attached a final line. She'll come running. Don't let her rewrite the story. I didn't plan to. Later that night, I turned on the news, not the cable kind, but the digital kind. Social media, Reddit threads, Twitter posts, TikTok stitches dissecting her lobby stunt frame by frame. The public loved a fall, especially a glamorous one. Her name was already trending. Hashtag Maya Vance Ray next to words like entitled, embarrassing, and manipulative. One user posted a screen grab of her laughing in the lobby and captioned it, "Imagine being this bold and this wrong at the same time." Another wrote, "She really said, I only brought my real loves, and now she's locked out of her trust fund. Karma wears a suit." I didn't comment. I didn't share. I didn't even smile. Instead, I turned off my phone again. I went to the window and watched the snow beginning to fall, soft and relentless. And for the first time in years, I felt something settle inside me. Not victory, control, and I intended to keep it. It started with a cryptic Instagram story, Maya's favorite kind of damage control. A muted black background with white, serif text that read, "Some people just don't know how to take a joke." No apology, no responsibility, just a familiar dodge disguised as cleverness. But this time, no one was buying it. The comments were instant and brutal. I didn't have to scroll far to see the vultures circling. She embarrassed her husband and called it a joke? Clown behavior. If this was a man doing this to a woman, we'd be calling it abuse. No wonder he left. She brought 2 X's and no dignity. The likes on that post were low. The reposts, however, were soaring. The wrong kind of viral. And it was only the beginning. I sat at my desk with a mug of coffee and watched the circus unravel from my laptop. Not with glee, never that. I wasn't built for schadenfreude. But there was a certain grim poetry in watching her carefully curated world buckle under the weight of its own fakery. Within hours, her biggest sponsorship, Gloss Skincare, issued a bland but final statement. "We are reevaluating all current influencer relationships and pausing our partnership with Maya Vansray effective immediately." Translation: she's bad for business now. I refreshed her page and watched the unfollow count tick downward. Not dramatic, not a free fall, but steady, like a quiet erosion. Julian was next. A leaked text thread appeared on a gossip blog, screenshots from a woman who claimed to have been seeing him for months. The timestamps overlapped with Maya's Florida trip. The messages weren't flattering. They painted Julian as a manipulative, fame-chasing opportunist. The worst part? He used phrases Maya had once posted publicly. Lines he clearly recycled to impress someone new. By the next morning, 2 of his modeling gigs were gone. Then came Marcus. News broke that he'd defaulted on a private loan from an investment fund owned by, ironically, Douglas Vance's real estate division. The kicker? He'd only secured the loan by name-dropping his renewed relationship with Maya. Vance Holdings had issued a cease and desist before noon. Within 48 hours, the empire of curated affections collapsed. Maya's golden circle, her boys, her brands, her buffers, scattered like ash. And me? I watched. Didn't post. Didn't comment. I barely told anyone. Just quietly made one more move, perhaps the final nail. I logged into the Vance Trust private account management portal, entered my credentials as interim executor, and reclassified Maya's $1.2 million personal account as restricted access. A technical term meaning she couldn't touch a dime unless I signed off on it. Her credit cards wouldn't stop working entirely, but they'd hit ceilings. She'd feel the leash tighten, especially when the lifestyle she broadcasted demanded constant liquidity. An hour later, Arthur called. "She's already reached out to the banks," he said. Panicked. Claimed there must be a system error. "Let her panic," I replied. "She will," Arthur said calmly. "But not for long. She'll regroup. People like her always do. But for now, the fallout is working." I hung up and stared out my window. The sky was gray, with snow clouds stacked like blankets against the horizon. Below, the lake was still, peaceful. And I realized something: this wasn't just about payback. It wasn't about seeing her squirm. It was about balance. For years, I'd let her and her family paint me into a corner. The quiet one. The manageable one. The husband you could dress up and ignore, like a fine suit worn only when convenient. I had smiled through the smirks, nodded through the backhanded compliments, swallowed the jokes at my expense over expensive wine. Now, I was holding the checkbook. I was signing the documents. I was drawing the lines they used to cross freely. That evening, I checked her social media again. Still no apology. Just a photo of her staring into the distance, tagged at some rooftop lounge, captioned, "Growth never looks pretty when it's real." But something was off in the image. No cocktail in hand. No designer handbag in the frame. Her eyes looked tired. Her hair less styled. She wasn't crumbling. Not yet. But the cracks were showing. A direct message popped up on my phone. Her username. I didn't open it. I let it sit there, unread, like a bruise forming under the skin. She wasn't ready to say what needed to be said. Not genuinely. Not yet. I shut my laptop and turned on some music, instrumental, low, steady. Something without words. I didn't need anyone else's voice in my head tonight. As I moved through my apartment, I saw my reflection in the hallway mirror. Same face. Same frame. but something in the eyes had shifted. I looked back at myself and saw a man who wasn't hiding behind politeness anymore. Maya's world was burning, and all I had done was remove my silence. No shouting, no revenge plot, just boundaries. And it was enough. It took 3 days for the dam to crack. I was slicing into a blood orange in my kitchen when the video surfaced, grainy, low resolution, but loud enough to rattle every surface of Maya's curated empire. A hotel staffer must have leaked it. Maybe a guest caught it on their phone and sold it to a gossip site. Either way, it spread like gasoline meeting flame. The video opened with Maya in the lobby of the Breakers, standing in front of the concierge desk, her face flushed, hair slightly frizzed from Florida's humidity. She wasn't filtered this time. No ring light. No gentle blur. Just raw, unvarnished fury. "Do you know who I am?" She screamed at the man behind the counter, jabbing a manicured finger in the air. "I am Maya Vance-Ray. My father practically owns half of this resort. Call your manager, call corporate, call whoever the hell you need." The concierge, to his credit, remained calm. "Ma'am, your credit card was declined. We've attempted it 3 times. This is a mistake." She stopped, looked around as if the marble columns might validate her status. "I have unlimited access." "Not anymore," someone muttered off camera. And then it happened. Her eyes flared, her lips curled, and she swatted the phone out of someone's hand nearby. The camera jerked, went sideways, but not before capturing her final outburst. "You think this place matters to me? I could buy it tomorrow." The video ended abruptly, but not before the damage was done. Within hours, TikTok exploded. Reddit threads sprouted like weeds. Twitter reposted it with captions like, "Maya Vance-Ray loses it at the Breakers, and entitlement in HD." I leaned back from my counter, let the knife rest beside the orange, and watched the chaos unfold in real time. Brands she'd worked with started issuing vague statements about reviewing professional relationships. Her PR team must have scrambled to control the narrative, but the footage was too raw, too perfectly symbolic of everything people love to hate. Wealth without restraint, privilege without shame, glamour melting into tantrum. She tried to post through it. At noon, she uploaded a soft-lit selfie with a caption. "The truth always surfaces. Sometimes in pain, sometimes in fire." The comments didn't go well. "You screamed at a hotel worker, not the universe. Girl, this isn't a healing arc. It's karma. Fire? More like fireworks of your career going out." By the end of the day, 3 more brands had cut ties. Her agent, once a close friend, issued a polite but firm statement that their professional relationship was on pause indefinitely. Then came the blow she wasn't expecting. Douglas, her father's board, filled with men who had tolerated Maya because of her image and connection to the Vance name, called an emergency meeting. I didn't attend, but Arthur filled me in afterward. The footage had forced their hand. Douglas, lucid that morning for the first time in weeks, apparently watched the video twice. Then told the room, "Leave Malcolm in charge. That girl's going to bankrupt us all." Just like that, whatever soft edges remained between Maya and her inheritance sharpened into a blade. I didn't text her, didn't call. I stayed still. But I did forward a quiet memo through Arthur to the board, a restructuring proposal for the Vance Foundation. One that eliminated the shallow, performative charity events Maya had championed, fundraisers that raised more attention than funds, and shifted the focus to practical grants for underserved medical communities. That same evening, a new clip surfaced. Maya again, this time not from a hotel camera, but from her own phone, a live stream she'd posted and deleted within minutes. "I'm being targeted," she said, eyes wild, mascara smudged. "This is what happens when you try to be bold. When you try to live outside the mold. People, small people, try to drag you back." It was supposed to sound empowered. Instead, it sounded desperate. Her followers didn't rally. They mocked. "Girl, no one dragged you. You tripped over your own ego. This is like watching someone lose Monopoly and flip the board." Even I had to look away. There's something unsettling about seeing someone unravel in real time, especially someone you once loved. I'd been there for her through depressive spirals, emotional crashes, moments when the weight of being perfect online fractured her. But this wasn't one of those times. This was a woman being confronted by consequence and refusing to recognize it. That night, I walked the edge of Lake Michigan as snow flurried down, delicate and soundless. The city shimmered under frost. My breath fogged in the air. I let the cold sting my cheeks, let it cut through the fog of memory. Because part of me still remembered the Maya I married. The one who read poetry barefoot in our first apartment, who cried when she watched nature documentaries, who held my hand during job interviews and whispered, "You've got this." That woman hadn't screamed at hotel staff. That woman hadn't humiliated me in front of an audience. I missed her, but she was gone, and in her place was someone I no longer recognized. My phone vibrated as I walked. A new email. From Arthur Lavin. Subject, full control. Body, the board has voted. You're confirmed as executor for the duration of Douglas's incapacity. Full authority granted. No challenges expected. I closed the phone and slipped it into my coat pocket. Maya was still burning, but I was already rebuilding something better. Back in Chicago, everything had an edge to it. The skyline outside my apartment was crisper in the winter, the air heavier with the threat of a storm that hadn't quite arrived yet. My new place overlooked Lake Michigan. Frozen, still, yet beneath the surface, there was the knowledge that a current of chaos was always moving. The world didn't stop just because I had. I spent the next few days staying quiet. It was a luxury I hadn't had in years. There was a strange power in silence, in absence, in no longer being tethered to the whirlwind that had been Maya's world. In the last week, I hadn't answered a single call from her. No texts, no DMs. She'd tried, of course, but I wasn't interested in playing her game. I wasn't interested in any more explanations or excuses. Instead, I spent hours at my desk, restructuring the Vance Foundation, shifting the focus away from the superficial vanity projects Maya had championed. It felt good to be working towards something meaningful, something I could stand behind, something that wasn't designed to be a photo op, but something that actually mattered. I redirected some of the foundation's resources towards sustainable healthcare for underserved communities, funded grants to small biotech firms working on antibiotic-resistant diseases. This was real. This was concrete. And it was mine. Not something borrowed to make a family look good on a yacht. The Vance family was quiet, too. For the first time, they weren't expecting me to fill in the gaps, to fix their messes or soothe their egos. Douglas's condition was deteriorating. Cassandra had been uncharacteristically silent, not reaching out as she usually did to cajole or manipulate. The power had shifted, and I could feel the weight of it settling around my shoulders, heavy but steady. And Maya? Maya was quiet too, though not in the same way. Her world had been splintered. No brands, no sponsors, no charming Instagram posts from the latest exotic location. She posted occasionally, but it was hollow. Her followers had fallen from millions to thousands. The comments were mostly concerned, asking if she was okay, but it was a different kind of concern. The kind that never cared until it was too late. I'd received no personal messages from her. No apologies. No reconciliation attempts. Just the distant hum of her public implosion, and I didn't need to engage. I was done. I walked by the wall where the wedding photo once hung, its empty frame a ghost of the past. I didn't have to take it down. It had already left, stripped of any sentimental weight. The reality of the marriage had dissolved in the same way Maya's followers had, quickly, without warning, and with an unsettling finality. There had been no closure. There was no neat little package to tie up with a bow. She had walked away long before I ever had, only I hadn't known it at the time. And maybe that was the hardest part, realizing that I had been holding on while she was already gone. It wasn't bitterness I felt, or even anger. It was simply exhaustion, a quiet acceptance. I took a deep breath, letting the quiet fill the room, the stillness wrapping itself around me like a blanket. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was waiting for something to happen. It was happening. Right here. Right now. I was living my life. The phone buzzed again, but I didn't look at it. I already knew who it was. Maya. It had been 3 days since she last reached out. Her voicemail had been calm this time, almost too calm, like she was trying to sound composed. I didn't listen to it. It didn't matter anymore. She would reach out again when she felt desperate enough, when the world turned against her completely. Maybe she was already starting to realize that without her social media empire, without her family's resources, there wasn't much left to her. Maybe she was starting to see that she had been living in a house of cards all along. I didn't know, and honestly, I didn't care to find out. What mattered now was that I had control of my life. My peace. That was something I hadn't had in years. I walked across the apartment to the kitchen, poured myself another glass of scotch, and sat by the window. The snow had started to fall again, light at first, just a soft dusting over the city. The world outside seemed smaller, more manageable in the silence. I sipped my drink slowly, feeling the warmth spread through me. I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad. I was content. The kind of contentment that comes with walking away from a life you thought you were supposed to want and finally realizing you don't need it at all. And then, as I stared out at the city, I heard the buzz again. This time, I picked it up. A text message. A single line from Maya. "I think I finally see you. I'm sorry I didn't before." I didn't respond. The silence between us was deeper now. It wasn't just the absence of her voice or her presence. It was the gap between who we had been and who we were now. I wasn't going to fill that gap. I wasn't going to rebuild something broken. She'd already done enough damage to herself, to us. The damage I had been patching up for years had finally reached its breaking point. But it wasn't my problem anymore. I placed the phone down and looked back out at the snow-covered city. The storm was coming. I could feel it in the air, thickening the silence even further. But this time, it wasn't mine to weather. The email came first, then the formal call, then the driver. Everything was wrapped in Vance polish, executive timeliness, fine-tuned logistics, and an unspoken urgency that clung to every message. It was Cassandra, of course, Maya's mother, the woman who used to call me Malcolm, dear, while offering cold smile compliments that felt like dry ice against the skin. Now she wanted a meeting. No Maya, just the family, which meant Douglas and whatever was left of the board that hadn't turned their backs on the crumbling golden image. I didn't agree immediately. I let the request sit in my inbox for 2 days before replying. Power isn't just in action, it's in pause, in letting them wonder whether you'll show up at all. But I did. Not for closure. Not for compromise. I want to witness the unraveling with my own eyes. Their estate looked the same, gated, quiet, and too symmetrical to be honest. As the car pulled into the circular driveway, I could already see the shadows through the window. Cassandra, Douglas, and 2 of the board members, all of them waiting like this was a negotiation and not a reckoning. I stepped inside and didn't bother with pleasantries. No handshakes. No forced smiles. Just a quiet nod to the butler who once ignored me at every family holiday. Cassandra spoke first, as I knew she would. "Thank you for coming, Malcolm." Her voice was smooth, restrained, as if she were still hosting an imaginary dinner party. Douglas sat near the fireplace, wrapped in a wool blanket, eyes dim but observant. There was a moment, just a flicker, where he seemed lucid. Like he still recognized me. Like he knew what was coming. "We won't take much of your time," Cassandra continued. "There's been a lot of confusion. Some missteps. But the family wants to make things right." "The family," I repeated quietly. "Which part? The part that laughed while Maya publicly mocked me? Or the part that told me I was lucky to be tolerated at your table?" That knocked some wind out of the room. One of the board members coughed into his hand. Douglas didn't move. "We understand there have been oversights," Cassandra said carefully, as if the word betrayal had too many syllables for her tongue. "But Maya is not well. She's unraveling. Her behavior isn't who she truly is." I raised an eyebrow. "And now it matters?" She blinked. "She's afraid. She's finally alone." There it was. The honesty beneath the pearls. Douglas stirred slightly in his seat and murmured, "I told her this would happen. I told all of you. She needs help." "Malcolm," Cassandra said, the facade crumbling ever so slightly. "You were always the calm one, the rational one. Talk to her. Bring her back." I stared at her. At all of them. These were the same people who had watched me sit through years of Maya's tantrums, her narcissism cloaked in empowerment, her staged compassion. They had watched me bear the brunt of her storms because it was easier for them. And now that she dragged the Vance name through the digital gutter, now that sponsors had left and headlines had turned, suddenly they remembered I existed. "Let me ask you something," I said, folding my hands together. "Where was this concern when I sat alone in that hotel lobby while your daughter announced her real loves to a room full of strangers? Where was this urgency when I called your bluff and walked away?" No one spoke. "I was alone then," I said, softer now. "And none of you cared." I stood up, slowly. "She'll survive," I said. "She's always been good at landing on her feet. But this redemption you're hoping I'll offer her, it's not mine to give. It's hers to earn." I turned to leave. Douglas cleared his throat. "Malcolm." His voice was weak but clear. I turned back. "You did what I never could. You walked away before they ruined you." I nodded once, then walked out. The silence in the car on the way back was thick. I didn't check my phone, didn't open the emails piling up from Arthur or the media advisors attached to the foundation. I needed that moment, the clarity, the affirmation that I was no longer their fallback plan. I was my own plan now. That night, back in my apartment, a new voice message waited for me. From Maya. I almost deleted it without listening, but I didn't. I sat down, turned off every light in the room except the one by the window, and pressed play. Her voice was low. No panic this time. No tears. No deflection. Hey, I know you won't call back. I don't even know if you'll listen to this, but I wanted to say, I see it now. I see how loud I had to be to cover what I was afraid of. I see how I treated you like stability instead of a person. I think I finally see you. And I'm sorry I didn't before. There was a pause. A silence that wasn't filled with manipulation or false sweetness. Then she ended with, whatever happens next, thank you for the way you loved me. Even when I didn't deserve it. I sat there for a long time after that. The city lights blinked outside my window, reflections stretching across the frozen lake. And still, I didn't respond. Because sometimes, silence is the only answer left. 3 months passed. Chicago thawed, slowly. The lake that once looked like glass cracked and rippled back into motion, mirroring the shifts in my own life, subtle but permanent. I still took my coffee black. I still walked to work in silence, hands in pockets, head bowed against the wind. But the man moving through these rituals wasn't the same one who had once packed a suitcase for a vacation he knew he wasn't really invited to. Maya disappeared from public view shortly after the voicemail. No new posts. No press. Her verified checkmark still sat beside her name, but the online noise had moved on. A new influencer scandal took her place. Then another, like dominoes in a game she no longer had the energy to play. Her silence wasn't strategic. It was surrender. And still, I didn't respond. The Vance Foundation had bloomed under my leadership. We quietly let go of every figurehead consultant Maya and her sisters had installed, replacing them with community advocates, scientists, educators. I launched a mentorship program, small at first, designed to support young men of color pursuing careers in biotech. I gave it a name that meant something only to me, Fixed Points, because that's what I had lacked for so long. Now, I could help others build theirs. My salary had increased. The board offered me a permanent executive role. I declined. I didn't need the title. I had the leverage. And more than that, I had peace. Real peace. The kind that doesn't whisper in moments of quiet but rings clear in every choice you're no longer afraid to make. I moved into a better apartment, less space, more light. No framed wedding photo. No closet filled with gifts meant to impress people I didn't even like. Just hardwood floors, a deep blue rug I chose myself, and a kitchen I actually used. I learned how to cook again, really cook, not just follow steps. I played jazz at night. Read novels I used to abandon halfway. I found myself slowly, steadily. And then one morning, it arrived. A small, rectangular package in cream-colored wrapping, addressed in a shaky but unmistakable handwriting. Douglas Vance. No return address. No card beyond the contents inside. I opened it slowly, unsure what to expect. Inside was a velvet box. When I lifted the lid, I found a set of pearl cufflinks, simple, elegant, weighty in a way that suggested heritage. I recognized them instantly. Douglas had worn them during board meetings, charity galas, even his daughter's wedding. They weren't just decoration. They were declaration. There was a note tucked beneath them. Real power is quiet. Real love is earned. No signature. No plea. Just that. I sat at the counter, turning one of the cufflinks over in my palm. The pearl gleamed in the morning light, subtle, not loud. And I realized then that this wasn't a gift. It was a final message. A kind of inheritance, not of money or title, but of perspective. Douglas had watched me. Maybe longer than I'd realized. Maybe he knew that Maya wouldn't change. Maybe he hoped I could steer the family ship back to purpose. And when I couldn't, when I wouldn't, he gave me the next best thing, his quiet approval. I didn't put the cufflinks in my drawer. I didn't wear them either. I placed them on my desk, beside a photograph of my parents, my real roots. The ones who taught me dignity before wealth tried to strip it away. The cufflinks weren't a trophy. They were a reminder that walking away isn't weakness. That staying quiet can be the loudest move you make. A few weeks later, I passed Maya on the street. It was raining, a soft, unsteady spring drizzle. She had her coat pulled tight, her hair tucked into a beanie. No entourage. No makeup. Just Maya. She didn't see me at first. She was walking fast, probably late for something, or maybe just trying to avoid being seen. I could have ducked away, could have stepped into the cafe behind me and let the moment pass. But I didn't. I stood still. She spotted me 5 feet away and froze. Her eyes flicked to the street, to the shop fronts, as if searching for a camera. Then back to me. No smile. No tears. Just silence. I nodded once. She nodded back. That was it. That was all we had left, and it was enough. Because forgiveness isn't always a conversation. Sometimes it's a glance on a rainy sidewalk. Sometimes it's knowing that whatever had to be said had already been said, in words, in absence, in consequence. That night, I added one last line to the mentorship program's vision statement. Success isn't always visible. Sometimes it's in what you walk away from. I never spoke to Maya again. I didn't need to. She had her journey. I had mine. And mine was finally mine alone.